Do we still gonna do that intro thing?
What intro thing?
You know, where you go, oh, welcome to the whole show.
I think we do, yeah.
I don't know.
You don't like it anymore?
It's okay. I think it's better. If we have
You're
a
just
guest,
bringing this up right now?
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's okay to just go right in the
All right,
conversation.
hi. So what's up, Katie?
What's going on?
Are we recording
guys?
right now?
No,
Okay, good.
no.
Are
We're
we?
not.
Wait, what?
Just
Yeah.
don't tell me when you do it. It's like when people put me to sleep,
Yeah.
like the anesthesiologist. I need them to tell me exactly when they start, when they start to put me out. But I don't want that here. I don't want to know because then the awkward takes over. The awkward takes over.
All right, I think we're good.
I think we've been recording the entire time.
I'm
So,
not nervous.
Yeah.
You're not nervous, are you?
No. Yes.
Have you done a podcast before?
No, of course
Shut
not.
up.
Nobody
You've done a-
fucking wants to hear me. No.
You're not on tons of podcasts?
Yeah, but you're getting on. You're like doing more social media things,
For my
right?
12 followers, yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yes.
And that's where you
They
start.
love
The
you.
answer is yes.
We
Yes,
have 12
Andrew.
followers too.
Do you?
Yeah.
One of them's me. I
Yes.
like your one. It's like, yes, 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 yes.
Oh.
Actually, I came here to
Okay.
clear something up, to be completely honest with you. Remember when you had Isaac on?
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I could be just like overly crediting myself.
Yeah, let's hear it.
But you guys said you hired him.
I hired him.
He
I hired him.
No, I hired him.
Okay, maybe I had a small part to play in it, but I liked him first.
Wait a minute. How did you tell me about that? Yeah.
Because we were working at the program we were working at. And he applied to be like a tech, I think, or a tech of some sort.
No way.
Yeah.
I interviewed him, bro.
You had a long
Maybe we
conversation
did
with
it-
Why
him.
would-
Maybe we did
I was
it
talking
together.
to Jesse about this, and let me know if I have this right. I think I was doing the operations, and then someone else was doing it, and then you came on, right?
Probably.
Or yeah. So I don't see how
Probably.
that timeline
We were
would
trying to
have
put
worked out.
together the puzzle.
Yeah.
of
Either
that.
way, he's amazing.
Yeah.
I like him. He has such good energy. I'm just giving you a hard time. But no, I think he's got great energy. I love
He
his
does,
story.
yeah.
And I didn't know that much of it. I think I knew some of it back then. But he's solid people. Super
Did you
sweet
know
guy.
what he was doing? Did you know that he was doing all that?
Yeah.
The using my story and all that stuff?
Your story?
No, he's got a company called Using My Story,
Oh.
and I think he's got a podcast, and they bring on like recovering people in recovery, and they just talk
Yeah.
about their
Testimonial,
story,
yeah, yeah.
Isn't it
testimonials.
incredible? Like how resilient people are. And I
Yeah.
feel like he's definitely one of those
Yeah, for
super
sure.
resilient people.
Yeah.
And that was his first job. Like
See, that I
In
didn't
the field,
know.
right?
that's wild.
He worked at other places. But first
No,
out
no,
in the
no, no,
field.
no. That was
Like
his
out
first.
of-
Like, yeah, dude. Remember he said that he was like,
Mhm.
I really need this job. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
were you there?
No, but I mean, he probably worked like at another place.
I
Not
think
like,
he was working at like a factory or
That's
what I
something,
mean.
and
He
he's
had
like,
a
this is
job.
not my.
No.
you didn't give him his first job.
Yeah,
You
he
didn't
was
give him your
18
first job.
years
You should give him
old.
the first job.
I hired him since he was 16 years old. I taught him how to drive. Oh man, Katie, I'm so happy that we have you on.
Yes.
Oh, I'm happy to
we
be
haven't seen you
here.
in a long time.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
It's
So
Yeah.
we
been a
gave an
minute.
introduction here.
What?
You want to give an introduction?
Of her?
Katie, Katie, tell us a little bit about like your history, your background.
Yeah.
You're in the mental health field in some way, in some aspects of it, and you're helping first responders. But I don't want to mess up like what you're doing. So yeah, what are you into right now? What?
Yeah. So right now I work for a company. Can I tell? What
Yeah,
the
you can
Yeah.
tell the
is?
company.
Yeah.
That's
So I work for a company called First Responder Wellness, and we have 3 different lines of our business that we do. So we do short-term counseling and critical incident debriefing and stress management, training and education through one arm of our business is called the Counseling Team International. So we essentially go into fire departments, police departments, essentially any front line style of work, and we help them come up with wellness plans for their people. So typically that looks like short-term counseling and critical incident debriefing and stress management. Another part of our company that I spend a lot of time in is our residential substance use and mental health treatment center that's exclusive to first responders and public safety. So that's all that they treat there. We're exclusive to public safety and first responders, and we're very culturally competent, which means that essentially all of the therapists that work there are not only specializing in their own areas of expertise, but also have specialized training in working with public safety and first responders and kind of the traumas that they come up against on the daily. And then right now, my project is working on the development for a part of our company called Shift Wellness, which is we call them retreats, but they're multi-day clinical wellness intensives. So we take specialty groups of people up to the mountains and we do these really amazing clinical intensives. We'll do some for peer supporters. So we'll take peer supporters from different departments away. We'll do training, education, work with them on mission, vision, value, goals for the actual peer support team, but also for, the individual peer supporter. We also have a trauma and resilience retreat, which is a very intensive trauma retreat. It's 4 days and 3 nights. And we're doing things like accelerated resolution therapy there. We also have a spouses of first responders retreat, which is very unique and not really anything I've seen elsewhere. And this is for the responder's spouse to go away and get very clear on like, all right, where am I? Who am I? How do I fit into this whole space?
Yeah.
Separate from the responder, because sometimes those lines can get a little bit blurry. Because what's interesting about a responder family is that you hear a lot in like normal spaces about like work-life balance. True. All of that always has to exist. And there's something that's just a little bit different about a responder family in that those boundaries of like, okay, I leave the office at 5 o'clock. That doesn't work like that. Oftentimes responders are, forced to stay on for long shifts, or the tones will go off when you're about to get your bags off of the engine and go home to your family. So those things just don't work the same way. We also have leadership retreats. So we also run a command staff as well as a chief's retreat. So those are some of the cool things that we do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very well-rounded program you got going over there. Yeah. That's amazing.
I think I think of it in terms of like a continuum of care, but also kind of like a pool of resources, and then the lanes that you jump in on kind of depend on like where you're at or what you need. Sometimes it's individual, sometimes it's departments, sometimes it's just cultural changes.
Yeah. So today, this conversation is going to go in many different directions,
because we have ADD.
Because we have ADD, and I got ADD.
Speak for yourself. I'm clear.
You down with ADD, Jesse?
Nothing wrong with me. Real quickly, just on what you talked about there, I thought that first responders, that's just such an interesting like culture community to work with, because I working in the addiction field so much, you would see people. There is a real disconnect. We worked with a guy who was a police officer, right? And when he worked with the program that we worked together at, people would come in and there was this. I would get this sense of like, Jesse, like, you're great, but you're not a cop. Like it was like, and I would try, being like who I am or just working in the field, I think we try to find that connection. There is something, right? But there is still a little bit of a disconnect. Yeah. And I think that's really great that there is a program like that. And there are people, like you said, that are trained in that specialty. Because from what maybe just your own perspective, do you think that's really crucial to have that, have that connection, like somebody that's trained in that at least, like knows how to touch on that? I think that it can be, right? I think nothing is black or white, all or nothing, and I definitely think that what it does is it saves a lot of time. It has a very regulating force. It kind of gets everybody kind of on the same playing field, because here's what's interesting. I think I know the program you're speaking of in particular, and the owner of our company, our founder, Dr. Stephen Odom, he actually worked there at one point. Okay, yeah. And LAPD was, you might have to delete that. No, you're fine. There was not just LA, but there was other, different organizations that were coming to us and saying like, hey, can you help treat our people, or like fire departments, or there was a diversion program in Northern California for nurses who were, using their patients' medication, which apparently you're not supposed to do if you have a license. And instead of like taking their license away, it's like, okay, well, let's help them not need that, right? Yeah. But what ends up happening is, you put a cop in a room, say a cop raises their hand, or a firefighter, or anybody, a district attorney, investigator, anybody who is doing this, okay, I actually need some help. What do? You put them in a room full of people who they may or may not have had a hand in arresting them, running calls on them. Right. And I think, in speaking to, the first responders that I've had access to, and like my social circle and my family, I remember asking like,
hey, when you think of mental health, what do you think of? And the resounding answer is, well, it's the calls I run. And if you think about that, well, when a responder comes to a 911 call and it's a mental health situation, you have to remember, like, that's not even that person. That's them on their worst day too.
Yeah.
So if like that's your framework of mental health, well, gosh, how separating that must be. So when you put responders in a room full of other responders, you just even the playing field in a lot of ways. And I think the same thing is true for the family members because there's so many things that are difficult to explain about what happens in a responder's household. So yeah, I think it can definitely be important. And then again, maybe sometimes it's not the best option.
Right. Yeah. So
Are people, do you find people are raising their hands, first responders, like to say like, hey, I do need help? Because I feel like there's this, maybe it's my idea, but there's this idea that like it's hard for, for any first responder to accept the help. They're the givers of the help.
Yeah.
They're going out there taking care of, the community, and in a lot of ways it can be seen as a weakness, and that's an old belief, right? That's a correct belief, but I know that for a time being, that was sort of a thing that would prevent people from raising their hands.
Absolutely. And I would say now too, I think that pressure is even greater because of so much of what has happened with a lot of the social unrest. Now it's like, I didn't come into this I came into this whole space because I have like a family history, right? And like I'm in brain health and I'm a nerd and I do all the nerdy things. And then I happen to, so all of the research, kind of led me to this point. But yeah, the answer to that question is yes. By the time, with our program in particular, it's like we treat, right, PTS, post-traumatic stress. We treat anxiety, addiction, depression, essentially any of the behavioral health isms of the ism world. It's whatever, whatever's coming up. But we don't even need a diagnosis, because by the time a responder picks up the phone to say like, hey, I need some help, we already know it's true. We've never had a faker because they are coming in so much later. And do I find that people need help? Yeah. I mean, like, we're adding houses. We have 60 to 70 people in our care at any given time. And, the phones are ringing. And it's because the culture is starting to change. Because now here's where it gets kind of cool, where the background in the brain health gets really cool, is if you take people and you stop treating them like they are robots to do a job, and you treat them like the carrier of the organ, which is their brain, and their brain is the computer that runs everything else, well, then it's so much easier to see why you have to do things proactively. So I work with a lot of peer supporters, and peer supporters are kind of plugged into departments, either by choice or by, they're assigned to do it as collateral duty. They will often tell you like, yeah, I got into peer support because something happened to me, or I went on a call with a dead baby, or, and it's so much more dynamic than that. Or like I went on a bunch of calls, or it wasn't even work. It was how work was impacting home. And, I went to my department and I said I needed some help. And they said, hey, this is the job. This is what you signed up for. Suck it up, buttercup. Rub some dirt in it. Like, this is the job. And so people try to rub some dirt in it, and they try to suck it up, buttercup. And then 5, 10, 15 years later, they're down a wife, a house, a job. And they're like, shit.
Yeah.
Shit. And then, either they end up in care, or other things happen, or they end up on peer support. Well, that's two different routes, but sometimes peer supporters will get into it because they knew that they needed help and they couldn't get it in the way that they needed help, and then they want to help their brothers and sisters. It's a little bit of a split off conversation. I told that little scenario in two different ways.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes me happy to hear that, because I think I'm having a lot of conversations when I'm in the room with people, therapy, where I'm trying to just dispel and challenge the core idea that, asking for help, that crying, that attending to your feelings is weak and unproductive, and so it's really inspiring to hear that, like, it's a message that's sort of being carried and being heard, especially with first responders. I feel like, again, I don't know, this is my bias, but I just feel like I've seen them as like, maybe they're really hard to crack sometimes, right? It's like there's this maybe like tough persona, mentality that's in there. Again, that's my assumptions and my bias, which is unfair, but it's just kind of what I picture when I think about a first responder. You know, this like tough guy who's like got to like stuff it all down and go.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know for sure, but you know, I mean, from hearing stories at the treatment center, definitely that seems to be, you know,
the fact that you're getting calls and you're doing the programming that you're doing says a lot about.
She said no fakers. I thought that was just like kind of, I don't know. That was like. It's legit. I mean, that's so cool. It's really cool what you just said right now, because to me, as you guys are sharing and you're talking, like, it is, to me, it's still the toughest, like, culture to, like, really get in there. Like, I'm, you know, when that guy said that to me, too, I'm like, I can figure this shit out. My ego's, like, barking at me, like, you can connect with this guy. But there is, like, a specialty to that, and, like, the fact that that's available now more than ever is just, it's great. There's still a stigma. I mean, there's still going to be stigmas, and they're going to carry heavily, but the more that we put work into it, we chip away and we chip away. So that's very hopeful to me to hear that. So,
why do you do it? Why do you do this work?
Oh, what a good question. I'm so curious. Like, I think in general, like, I'm so curious. I've never, and I think probably for any of us, like, my personal interest has always led me to like other areas of opportunity, right? And so, I mean, I guess we can probably go back to how we all met. You know, I was I'm a nerd. I'm a trained nerd, which makes me
like more. You're cerebral. You are like super, like when we say nerd, because nerds are very
she likes to read studies.
She likes books.
Like, I just like the brain.
You're just like big into Harry Potter or some shit like that. Like, what kind of nerd are we talking about?
So let's get into this. So when we all met, we were all working at a program kind of locally. So I have my degree in psychology and I have an emphasis in neuropsych. And I really like things about like sensation and perception and people and how people perceive the world, right? And I thought I was going to be a psychologist until I realized like that was probably not for me. And I don't really know what that was.
Say why? Why was that? Was that your jam?
It wasn't my jam.
Okay.
It just ended up not being my jam.
That didn't fit. Okay.
It wasn't a fit. And I think back then I probably assumed that it was going to be, I just didn't want to anymore.
What did you imagine it would be like?
Like sitting in an office building.
Yeah.
Like in chairs. Talking.
And what did you find out?
That is kind of, well, it can be that.
Well, that is part of, I was like, you're kind of on point.
Yeah, so what did you like
missed
about
the mark
it?
here then. Like, you could still.
I just didn't want to anymore. I wanted to move around. So this is what happened.
Right.
I like the brain.
Okay.
And so I got exposed to neurofeedback. So I went off to do a certification through the Biofeedback Certification International Alliance. And I was working in residential substance use mental health treatment centers, and I was like plugging little neurofeedback programs into like larger treatment centers. And so I was traditionally trained, so that means like I can put the electrodes on the head and I can actually record it and then I can analyze it. So when I say a nerd, that's what I mean. So I can analyze that data and then set it against a norm. And I don't practice anymore, but this is used a lot in like sports performance and you know, mental health performance. And so I was plugging neurofeedback programs into residential treatment facilities and programs. I thought it was really cool because it's essentially a way to train the brain like it's a muscle, not like it's an organ. It is an organ, but it can behave like a muscle. And so I got really into like the training and the explanation of that. And like, I'm a bouncy person. Like I do have ADD, which is I actually think awkward and ADD are my superpower. And so
hear that?
Yeah.
And we had somebody talk about that on the show actually.
Well, awkward
ADD,
is my
no, the ADD is superpower.
Oh, it for sure is. You want me. Like in dinosaur times, like you want me.
Totally.
Like I'm aware. Like, you want
you're
somebody.
You're so composed though. Like I don't see like ADD, but you know.
Oh, you give it some time. give it 10 minutes.
Okay,
We'll see.
right.
Like,
it's all internal anyway, you know. So it's
no, it's like you learn social norms. It's like you're not allowed to shake.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
shake
yeah.
in front of the people.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So anyway, so I was building neurofeedback programs into other programs, and then we all ended up at a different program together working. And I had just realized that there was a different path for me, and like I really still love the brain. So I went to work with Dr. Daniel Amen, and we were doing these fancy schmancy, really amazing brain evaluations where we would actually scan the brain as part of a comprehensive evaluation process, where we'd also set that against symptoms and psychological evaluations and work with a psychiatrist. We'd actually also do, one of the things that I love to do when people would come in is like have them do genetic testing to see how their bodies would actually metabolize different things, so that, because the order, now I'm not a medical person, I'm not licensed, I'm not any of those things. You guys have all the letters behind your name, I don't have them. But we would also do these tests where we would see how people would metabolize medications, because the order of medicine also matters. Like, you can't just throw a bunch of meds at somebody at the same time and assume that the brain is going to respond appropriately. Nor can you put medicine, or like, you can't a brain can't heal in a toxic environment. So if you're having like excessive inflammation or mold exposure or any of these things that happen and that impact your body's ability to metabolize, then the medicine is not going to work the same way. So anyway, we do those really cool evaluations, and we would assess the brain and see. So we would do SPECT, which is single photon emission computed tomography.
Oh,
it's a measure of
you
blood
following
flow.
all this right
No.
now? Okay.
So,
Yes.
so back to explain how you're a nerd. Alas, huzzah, here we are.
Oh, wow.
So we would actually measure the function and blood flow as a huge part of that evaluation. Now, that's what Dr. Amen is mostly known for. Like, you'll see the pictures, you'll see the blood flow.
Yeah.
The diagnosing is never, ever, ever just done on the blood flow alone. It's all of those different component parts. And so then we would do those evaluations. So we'd set up a treatment plan for folks. And what we would end up finding out a lot of the time, trauma, emotional trauma is a huge part of it, and physical trauma, like actual trauma to the brain. So it's like, if you've got somebody who is behaviorally acting out, but they have a brain injury at their temporal lobe, of course they are.
Yeah.
Guess what? Guess whose fault it's not? The person with the brain injury.
Yeah.
Same is true. Now, not to say that people don't have ownership in the things that they do, but if you have somebody who literally you can see in their brain that their limbic system is not firing the way that, somebody who has not experienced emotional trauma has, you got to address that trauma. You got to get that brain calm, because from an evolutionary and electrical and blood flow standpoint, that brain is just trying to survive.
Yeah.
So anyway, working there, I get, I have a responder in my family, and, I think I just started to notice like a lot of different connections. And then on the low, I was having, my acquaintances reach out to me and say like they needed help. And so obviously I handled that extremely confidentially and was able to support people. But that was like the first sign that I had that, okay, there is definitely a need here that's getting overlooked. Yeah. So that's kind of the ethos, or
and you explained neurofeedback too pretty well with that process. Who's a candidate for neurofeedback? Because it sounds like I don't know too much about it. I have an appointment to get it done, just to experience it.
Yeah.
And I heard you're going to feel like super good afterwards. I don't know what that means or what it entails. I think I saw the scanner or the little thing that they put on your head with the little gel to, I don't know, do some brain scans.
Where are you going?
Right next door, actually. There's a lady that is here that does neurofeedback.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, I'll see what it's about. But I've heard it. I know that it's a trendy tool that's being used right now.
But it's been used for quite a while now.
It's been used for a while,
Yeah,
but I'm hearing it more and more now.
More often.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what? Who's a candidate for this? Like, is it someone who just there's so much that they don't know where to start, what to start addressing? Someone where they've been to so many prescribers, so many doctors that they're just confused, this person, so we're trying to get to the root of it, or sort of what do you see as the primary benefit tool, and who's a candidate for this?
So this is one of those tricky questions where it's but wait, there's more. Honestly, anybody, and it kind of depends on your goal. So it's the same exact protocols that I would have used. Well, it depends on which modality I'm using, but it's you can take and insert for pro athletes for peak performance. You can take this same tool and use it for people who have trauma, right? So, and it's been around for a long time, but it is typically and effectively used. Gosh, it's used in so many different areas. And then the conversation around insurance always gets super tricky, because I feel like once something gets taken on and then it fits under a certain category of things and you can utilize insurance, and it kind of becomes known for that thing.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say, Anybody, honestly,
Yeah.
really depending on the need. And honestly, it works really, really well for trauma.
Okay.
Really well.
Yeah.
Anybody who's, exploring sleep options, ADD. And again, like I speak better from like kind of the peak performance aspect because I'm not licensed, but honestly, anybody with a brain.
Okay.
Truly.
And a treatment plan looks like you're going to go to therapy, you're going to do X amount of brain exercises, or is stuff like that kind of?
Yeah, so when I would do it with people, like if I was working in a treatment setting, I always worked under a psychologist and I would use their license, or under a physician and I would use their license. But yeah, typically I wouldn't start anybody unless they were willing to commit to at least 12. I mean, I wouldn't even start them if they weren't willing to commit to at least 12 sessions, because you're not going to notice anything until you hit like 20. And generally like a good baseline is 40. So kind of thinking of it like going to the gym, which is kind of why I compare it to working out and like treating your brain like a muscle, not like an organ. It is an organ, but the brain has to. So this is what's really great about the brain. The brain is super duper duper smart, extremely lazy. Yeah. It's focused on one thing: saving calories, making babies. Boom. That's it. Like really. And so if it learns, and that's all.
Come on, Jess.
That was good.
Yeah.
You made him laugh. No one's ever made him laugh.
Never mind. Just you're good. Keep going.
Thinking about making babies, Jesse?
No. I was like, I'm confusing the brain with like, I don't know, a man. I don't know.
It's all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same. Okay. There we go.
This is great. It's not the same.
This is awesome.
No, but where were we with that? Doo-dee-doo.
The brain.
The
We're
brain.
talking about the treatment planning, right? Like you ask people to commit to 12 to 20-something sessions,
because you're not even going to notice it.
Yeah.
Now that's a little bit different. So I want to talk to you about. So I'll talk about somebody else's research. So one of the best protocols for neurofeedback in a residential treatment facility with somebody who's like dealing with like addiction or depression. It was out of the UCLA in the 90s, and they took a bunch of folks who had PTS and alcoholism, and they were veterans, right? And they ended up coming up with a protocol that like the brain would not necessarily ask for. But that's kind of one of the protocols that I see work really well in treatment settings. And like this is when we're talking about the function of the brain. I don't know if I want to yes, we'll get into this now. So let me finish answering your question about that, and then we're going to get into connection. So anyway, don't start it unless you want to do at least 12 sessions. And honestly, you should not even do it unless you're willing to commit to 20, because you're probably not going to notice anything until 40. But essentially what you notice is like things just become easier. Things become clearer. There's like a lot less energy and stress related to things. Oh, that's what I was talking about. The brain is super lazy, because once it learns to worry about something, it knows exactly how many calories it's going to take to continue worrying about that thing. Yeah. And so it'll just keep doing that. And then if you've ever actually seen like synapses fire, like you could see they start to branch off and connect, right? It's like once it learns how to do that, it's like, all right, I've got my pathway and I know how much energy to put toward that thing. And now that I have like a budget of energy, I don't need to worry about doing any more or any less. And that's actually how lazy and effective the brain is. So you just teach it how to do something else and it'll start doing something else.
Wow. Yeah.
So it goes, why is she marrying a guy just like her dad? Because of synapses, like literally.
That's intense. So I'm a therapist. I have a client who, how could using this like help someone's therapy accelerate?
Yeah. It's funny because like therapists used to love to have their people come to me right before they'd have therapy. So they would send the client to you right before their therapy session or before they started treatment? Because you become like more open-minded and more regulated.
Oh, dang.
And then we can even talk about why that sometimes is in particular. So I used to call it the Cheerios effect. Like people would say, things just feel like less stressful, more clear. I'm like, oh, it's different. I mean, I'm doing neurofeedback, but that couldn't be it. No, anything else different? Well, I had Cheerios this morning. Must have been the Cheerios. And it's just because your brain is spending less energy where it doesn't need to be spending energy, which actually doesn't feel extreme. And isn't that interesting, right? It's like the middle is kind of the message sort of thing. It's not dramatic. Is it like the truth is quiet? Yeah. It's kind of like, that sounds way too like granola for this. It's very nerdy scientific. But that's what happens. The brain just kind of regulates.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's crazy. I love the idea that like becoming more effective with your brain over time, over amounts of little decisions or little processes that make you more effective. Absolutely. You're going to become less stressed, less overwhelmed, less reactive to certain things, and more open-minded to get into other.
And it's electrical, which is kind of cool too. It's like, I think that there's something else really to that. Is like, I think we know now, like if you can see trauma in the brain, right? Like if we can see, I mean, and how sweet is the brain? Like how sweet and cute is that? It's like, oh, you've now experienced a trauma. And we know, right? Trauma and criticism, all of that stuff hits way closer to your survival networks, which is why they say you have to, therapists, I've heard people like you say things like, oh, well, you have to have 7, what is it, the number of positive to negative?
Answer that.
I know in relationships it's 5 to 1.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
Why do I think that is?
You better answer this shit right now.
Yeah. I think it's because I think of culture. I think of like getting yourself used to doing something, it's like exercise, like you said, right? Like looking at the positives, looking at ways to compliment your partner, looking at ways to, versus looking at what's wrong, right? It's just that like conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. And that's from that angle too. I can see that. And also it comes from the survival of the person, because now a saber-toothed tiger, like a socially awkward situation is the equivalent of a saber-toothed tiger. So it's like, if you hear something criticizing from your partner and that hits deep at your like amygdala and it starts to pulse, right? That's actually coming after your safety, which is why it takes so many more positive things to like get registered up at your frontal lobes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they do love me. I am safe. This is okay.
Right.
I do look good in these jeans. Like it's going to be okay, because criticism, I mean, depending on the person, of course, but that hits your survival network.
It's hard to hijack it's hard to get out of that once you're in that, right? It's like such an activated, unsafe place. And everybody has different things that activate it, right? But that's so interesting.
For sure.
Wow. Amazing.
I'm just reflecting on how much work I need to do on myself still.
You're pretty. Your jeans look great on you.
You were going to say something about connection. I don't know if you were like, if you want to go back to that.
Yeah, I do. So, so I think, kind of a lot of our conversation, I mean, because I know the space that we've worked for, some time together is like, we always are kind of intersecting with people who are getting well or on this wellness journey. Right. And like, I don't know about you guys, but I have never come up against anybody who has not experienced some level of trauma. There's just no way this is just life.
I think I think that I heard this one time. We're born into this world perfect, but slowly like, the world picks or stabs at us, whatever, and there's trauma there. There's just trauma throughout life.
We have insecurities. I mean, trauma is such a spectrum now that we understand it, right? Like anywhere from like a very big traumatic event to an emotional injury, like you're talking about, and it starts when we're kids, you know?
Sure. Yeah. For sure. And so like one of the things that I like to walk people through, like I'm not practicing neurofeedback anymore, for the same reasons. Like I decided not to be a therapist. Like I get really interested in things, and then I use the world as an opportunity to learn things about things, and then I accidentally turn it into a job all the freaking time.
You're so ADD now. I see it. Now I see
I told
it.
You,
oh my God.
10 minutes.
Welcome to the club.
Just living my most distracted life.
Real quickly, do you miss it at all? Like, no.
She's on bigger and better things, dog.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, so this is what I miss. But I feel like there's so many, because all right, so if I'm able to effectively communicate it to people in a way that they can then go out and get it themselves in a way that maybe, I wouldn't have been able to do sitting in a room. Like what I definitely miss, like the opportunity of watching the light come on for people. But I also feel like if I can shepherd people into the resource, it's going to help them. Like there was nothing unique about me as a practitioner. What was actually unique about me as a practitioner is that I could explain it in a way that it seemed like, people are like, oh, okay, I got it. Okay, that's cool. But no, I don't really miss like the one-on-one stuff. But what's interesting about the brain is that, and I've seen you guys, I'm so proud of you, by the way. So proud of everything. I know the two of you, it's so tender.
I love him.
Becoming dads and doing the dad thing. So this is what's interesting about the brain. So like we know like the brain is designed for connection. We know that like the way that we experience the world impacts the way that we see the world long term, right? So it's like there's this really nifty part of your brain. It's called the default mode network, and it kind of is cradled. And I'm going to use like a little bit of an image here, but it's like it's cradled where your parietal area is, and it kind of activates when it's held, like the back of your head is held, and it's activated when mommy looks into baby's eyes or daddy, but you know, like typically speaking, and it's like the it also gets activated right at that eye level, like that eye. Yeah.
What gets activated?
It's called the default mode network.
The default mode network. Okay.
Yeah. So like,
have you explained what that was yet?
Not yet. I'm going
to.
Okay.
So
it's
just making sure I'm tracking.
ADD,
baby.
ADD. We get paid to have ADD. And we're off. Neurofeedback captures ADD. It's fine. It's a superpower. So it gets activated like when mommy looks into baby's eyes and holds baby by the back of the head, holds baby close, because it has to do with the parietal area, which is associated with proprioception, like where you are in physical space. It's the same thing as the same part of our brain that tells us how much space I need to fit through that door.
Yeah.
It's the same part of the brain that knows exactly how tight my pants are going to be when I hold them up. It's like how you know how you fit and feel in your skin.
Sure.
Okay. So that part of the brain, which is associated with where you are in physical space, is also the same part of the brain that's associated with where you fit in a social network. It's also the part of the brain that helps you understand like where you fit in a bigger picture. Okay. So what we see with trauma, and the reason why certain types of neurofeedback work so well, is because that part of the brain can start to just kind of shut off, right? And even worse than shutting off, with children who have experienced, I call it like the slow trickle of deprivation, neglect. That part of the brain doesn't turn on properly. And so kiddos who grow up to be grown-ups don't really know, they don't feel good in their skin. It's like that icky feeling, right? It's like where they also don't know where they fit in a social, where are my people? Who are my people?
Yeah.
And with the really severe cases of trauma, it's like, where do I fit in a bigger picture? And if you think about that, when we're talking about how sweet the brain is, like how sweet the brain is to us, what good is that information if you're a kid and you're going through trauma? Why do you need to know where your physical body is in space if it's not safe? Why does it matter where you fit in if the net result of that is that you don't? And oh, by the way, what kind of God would let this happen anyway? And that can be so heavy, right? Yeah. But the thing is that neurofeedback in some ways can help to turn that back on in a way that is not overly emotional or overly ethereal. Sometimes it's just electrical. Now we see that in adults who experience trauma, like specifically things like moral injuries, like the stuff that happens to other people that shouldn't happen to other people, and how do I categorize that and plug that out and put that away somewhere else? Yeah. But it definitely happens for kids too, and neurofeedback is honestly like one of the faster track ways to kind of address that. It's not a magic bullet, it's not the only thing that's going to get it done, but it does help.
That's amazing. Gosh, I'm just thinking about, people who experience like a lot of loneliness, a lot of depression, or even just this disconnection, right? And how much of what an opportunity it is to be able to react. I didn't even know this part of the brain existed, so that's amazing. Yeah. Wow.
Are we in ADD land right now?
I was letting it just sit.
So
told me like,
I'm just
sit in silence for a minute.
Have you done neurofeedback treatment yourself on yourself?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Was it intentional to work on treatment, or was it because like I'm in this world, I'm selling this, I gotta do it?
It was actually, I got into it because I was, like I said, kind of a nerd and really interested in it. And I like neurofeedback and like neuro stuff and sensation and perception. Like I always thought it was really interesting the way that the body integrated things. And like, do you know what a heuristic is? It's like the way that your brain fills in the gaps. It's like, I just always thought that stuff was interesting. And I got into it because that was the first time I was exposed to it when I was working in residential treatment. And then I just kind of really went full force into it. But I wanted to work with athletes.
Okay.
Do peak performance stuff.
Yeah.
But as a therapist, I'm sure you guys understand this. It's like to run a practice, you also have to recruit the business and maintain the space and do all of the things.
Yeah, for sure.
So I decided to just do the business route.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And so when you did it, it was you just for interest. You weren't like, I feel like shit. I want to get this part of my life fixed. I want to figure this out. No, okay. It was just.
But I will tell you, when I went and trained, like I did it. I mean, I had access to it, and so I did it, and it was like really effective. And then when I did the protocol, the same protocol that they used in UCLA in the 90s, I will tell you, man, it was like, it definitely had an impact on me for sure.
Yeah.
Like I felt so much clarity. Things just, seemed easier. So yeah, I have definitely done it.
Yeah. And you felt those benefits.
Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's your own brain. It's your brain using its own information. You don't put anything in, you just put the electrodes on the head, and then your brain responds. And I even explained to you how it actually works. I was just yammering on about the brain because this is what I do, but see, and this is the ADD in me. But when you're actually sitting down doing neurofeedback, all you're doing is you're using the system as a mirror to what's already happening inside of your brain, and the feedback comes through auditory or visual cues when your brain does what we want it to do. So it just ignores, it's just like children. You just ignore the behavior that you don't want to put the focus on, and then you attune to the behavior that you want. Ignore bad behavior, right? Ignore, praise. Ignore, praise.
Maladaptive or adaptive, right? Behavior.
Exactly. Right. It's like, I'm not saying like ignore your kiddos, but it's like you put grass is greener where you water it sort of thing. So it's like as soon as the brain does electrically what you want it to do during neurofeedback, that's when you give an auditory or visual cue. And when I was talking about how lazy the brain is, that's literally how lazy it is. Yeah. If it just gets any feedback, any attention at all, it's like, ooh, I like it.
When you were first talking about the brain and neurofeedback, and when you were talking about how, you can track someone's brain and kind of measure it up against the data, the database of I was getting a little bit like I don't care about that stuff, I was like, how could that help a client? That's where my question came from. Like, how is this going to help? Like, my client as a therapist, but it makes sense how like there's actually a benefit you feel after 12, 24, 40 sessions, like you mentioned. And then the other stuff sounds like it's more like research, like to kind of help the researcher kind of guide, like, okay, we can kind of have some data, have some stats, have some evidence for how this works.
Yeah. So I should probably have let me think of this through in a way. If I were to do like a 20-second elevator pitch, your brain behaves electrically because that's how it's supposed to behave, right? Sometimes you have a bunch of different brain waves. You have them all, you need them all, you use them all. It's just a matter of how you use them, when you use them, how much you use them, and if it's appropriate. So really fast brain waves are associated, this is way overgeneralized, but really fast brain waves are associated with moving quickly, thinking quickly, feeling quickly, anxiety, all that stuff. Slower brain waves are associated with a little slower behavior, sleeping, depression, blah, blah, blah. This is, again, a huge overgeneralization. But you need to be using your brain waves appropriately at different times. So when you train a brain doing neurofeedback, you just essentially give it auditory and visual feedback, which is then interpreted by the brain as a reward when it's using brain waves appropriately. Yeah. And that little bitty, itty bitty reward actually trains your brain to just use itself more effectively, thus saving calories, thus leaving more time and energy to make babies.
Yeah, that's right. Making babies. What we put on earth to do. I was going to say that one thing I wanted to say that was important, that stood out to me, was that like you were working like in a program at times where you wouldn't have that much time with clients, right? Like you would have like limited time. And for me, I was just thinking for myself, I was like, man, it must have been so unfulfilling at times to be like in a process where you only had people for a limited amount of time. But I also remember people like saying, people wanted to go work with you. I don't know if it was just because they got out of a group or something like that, but they like being around you though, and you had like you had a good vibe about you. So was that? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to like summarize is that like you went out and you got that job with Dr. Amen. That was your dream done with the field. I feel like you almost like you kind of peaked there, and you're like, you know what? I am done with this. Like I found something more that I'm more just motivated to do. And you kept going and you kept going. That's you, right? You just keep going and going and going, and no stopping you, right? No matter what it is. No. And
I think that they liked me too, because I think here's the thing: you can't change what you don't track. I mean, you can change it, but if you don't have anything to look back on, and so definitely part of like the neurofeedback process was making sure people understood where they were to start out.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to see something when you're in it, right? It's like the forest through the
Right.
trees thing. You can't see your path when you're on it.
Yeah.
So it's like I would spend time with people really understanding like where they were and asking them if they understood where they were, because then when that Cheerios conversation happened, it was so much easier to be like, well, obviously, bro, the only thing that's actually changed here is the neurofeedback.
Must be the Cheerios.
Right?
I love
It's
that.
not the Cheerios,
Yeah.
it's the neurofeedback. So yeah.
They changed from honey nut to original,
Yeah,
and it was
like that was the miracle.
the magic right there.
So
Oh my gosh. What? I'm gonna shift the conversation. You have
are?
anything to?
no,
share?
yeah.
Just kind of want. So I wanted to ask. A part of the show, we kind of do. The big mission here is to kind of to show who mental health professionals are, who people in the field are, really to humanize like that. Like we don't not have issues, right? And so
I'm perfect.
I'm solid gold, buddy.
dude.
What are you talking
ADD
about?
is a superpower.
It is a superpower.
So what I was going to ask you is, have you been to therapy yourself? Like, have you sought out like being in the mental health side? You help a lot of people, but have you yourself seen a therapist or a mental health professional or done work on yourself?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have. I do. I will. I am. I think that actually, and if I'm speaking back to like how all of this actually got started, like what in the world actually would have inspired me to go about and get a degree in psychology and even consider being a therapist, it was because I had a transformative experience in my early 20s, where, I think I went through a lot of the stuff that, people go through when they're going through that first major transition in their life, from being in high school to being in college and trying to figure that out. And I didn't even think about this until this moment, but yeah, I had melanoma at a really young age. And it took
What's melanoma?
It's skin cancer.
Oh,
so
okay.
but it's like one of the aggressive forms, and it was like a big to do. And I was like at UCLA like really early on, and I think they tracked me for like 10 years because they were surprised, because I think I was 18 or 19.
Wow.
And I think that it wasn't that actually took me mentally into a different place, but it was that it seemed like for me at that time, it was just kind of like the last straw. And I kind of got into a space where it's like, I just want to be, a normal kid.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my journey to, finding my way to therapy, which of course it's like you go into therapy for all of the obvious stuff and then you rip off the Band-Aid and you find out it's more than ADD. Right? But like, yeah, and that was a huge turning point in my life that opened up my mind to a whole different space. And then, for sure I've stayed in therapy because I think just like working out or doing like eating healthy or like drinking liquid death, like you don't stop the things because I anticipate I hope I'm going to grow forever. I hope I'm going to continue to challenge myself and read all of the books and do all of the things. Because, if you're not growing, you're dying sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. What was that experience like to step into the place of looking for a therapist for you? Was that challenging to get to that place of like, I need to go talk to someone? Or
yeah, at that point when I was young, it definitely took encouragement like from my mom, right? Like, hey, you might want to like see a therapist. For sure that was challenging, but I think we kind of grew up in an era where it wasn't unheard of, right?
Yeah. For my family, I talk about this at times. Therapy was never even like in our vocabulary.
Right.
Like it just wasn't a thing. Like we had a shit ton of problems. We had family members who, took their own life. We had people struggling with addiction. We had families falling apart because of infidelity. And it's like, we didn't even, like therapy wasn't even like, we should probably go check in with a therapist.
Like, there's the road, go get the broom.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was tough, right? To like, I didn't go to therapy until I was in grad school to become a therapist.
Wow.
Because it was a requirement. I was like, oh yeah, I should probably do that.
Then why did you want to be a therapist?
Well, it's a long story. It's kind of, so I was really pushed to go to school more than me feeling passionate about going to school. My family values education, and they wanted me to get my graduate degree and become a professional employee in any field. And so one of the main things that my family agreed that I would be was a doctor.
Got it.
and you know, because I wanted to make my family proud, I went along with it. But I realized that wasn't going to be a path when I failed out of biology, failed out of calculus. So I saw psychology as a subject that it was really easy for me to learn. I understood it. It was interesting to me. And that's when I made the career choice. I was like, you know what? Like, I could totally see myself doing this. It seems like a cool job. I saw the movie Freaky Friday. I was like, she's a counselor. You know, like, that's cool.
It's so wild that yours is Freaky Friday, mine's The Sopranos. Isn't that just like a very strange difference on how we saw things?
I didn't watch The Sopranos until like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
And then as I went into that field, I got lucky because I actually fell in love with it during the grad school process.
Yeah. And how lucky the field is that that's what happened for you. Because I'm so surprised that is your path because of how, from the time that I have known you, you've always had that energy about you, not to like shove you into a box, but I can definitely see you having the energy of a therapist.
Dude, it's wild. Like, I was shaped for it. Like, if I look back at my family interactions, like, I was molded to become a therapist. It's weird, and it just aligned that way. You know
Page
what I mean?
319 on family systems.
Exactly. Yeah, and what made me fall in love with therapy, by the way, wasn't even like the classes. It was me going to therapy. Like, made me fall in love with therapy. I was like, I had an amazing therapist. I was like, holy shit, this fucking works. Like,
and that's what having a safe and good therapist too. Yeah, so important.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. And so I remember sort of like my original, I didn't know what to think. I was like, I remember I felt a little bit like a fraud. I was like, man, I'm just starting to go to therapy right now. But it was fucking scary to like sit in a room with somebody and just talk about yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm just now getting like comfortable talking about myself without like feeling like, shit, am I talking too much about myself? Like, so that was really like a scary experience. What was it like sitting across a therapist for you for the first time?
Well, I think you spoke to it and we kind of joked about it earlier, but I think that it actually has so much weight. Like, awkward is a superpower.
Yeah.
Like, it's awkward. Being vulnerable and like getting cracked wide open is really, really painful and awkward and uncomfortable. And then it's like anything else. It's, you do that, and then you find like you're okay. And I think with anything, right, it's like your experience leads you to other opportunities and other options to get more and more and more uncomfortable. I guess what therapy does too is it gives you that opportunity to know like discomfort's going to be okay in the safety of the right people, and then like it's okay to step into the next ring of discomfort. I don't know, like today is super uncomfortable, but it's like also I know I'm going to be fine. I know it's not. I know that this is not a saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
And therapy gives you the opportunity to experience life in that way if you're with a safe therapist. Yeah. And then if you trust yourself, and like there's so many battles, I think, that I've fought on my own and I was actually talking to my current therapist about this last week. It's like I'm going through like a huge life transition right now.
Yeah. Can you get the mic a little closer to
I'm going through a huge like it just got to the juicy part. Go closer.
Yeah, get closer.
No, I'm going through like a really big life transition right now. Yeah. And I was telling my therapist, because like in COVID when everything moved to like online therapy, I've done a lot of therapy sessions from my bedroom staring at this one crack, and it's not a crack, it's like the crease corner of the ceiling. And it's like, I told her the other day, it's like, it's wild to me that I've sat here like week after week going through this stuff, and I feel like I have fought a war that no one saw, staring at that exact same frickin' crack. Dang. Or crease or what corner, whatever
it is.
But that's kind of, I think, the thing that happens when you do self-development and you do therapy is that you can learn that crease in the wall is the exact same, and everything on the outside looks the exact same, and on the inside it's different world.
Shit.
Yeah, it's like
movement.
Yeah, it's movement, right? So I think that getting into the therapeutic space, that's what that door opens for you. And well, shit, like that's not going to stop changing either. Like you're just going to keep doing that.
Yeah. That is wild.
I just want to bring up, you mentioned us being dads. You're a mom.
Yes.
And I said this recently. We did like a Father's Day episode, but I talked about the most important thing I feel I'll ever do in my entire life is be a father. It's like the role I never thought I wanted, but then when I got it, I'm like, I'm all in. I guess for you, just being a mom and having these ventures and the work that you do, like, how do you...
You're a little closer there, Jess.
How do you do it all? How do you do that? How can you just... Yeah, how do you be a mom?
Yeah. Well, and yes, you guys are dads, and like I said when I said earlier, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you guys, and obviously,
back at you, lady. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
so.
You guys are doing great, and obviously, mamas are doing great too.
Yeah.
You hear that, wife?
Yes,
just kidding.
You are.
I'm doing a good job.
Doing
I'm just
great
kidding.
job. I promise. No, but I've just been so pleased with like the content that you've been putting out. So how do I do it all? I don't. I don't. So like oftentimes people ask me, and like here's the thing about me too is like you'll find like I'm painfully honest, which is like sometimes a great quality and also like awkward at times, which is my superpower. No, I just crush the plan B every day. Nice. Every day is just doing my best with the plan B because it's that's it, and that's all you can do. Yeah. So I don't do it all. I do my best, and then I say sorry. And I ask like how I can be better, and I challenge myself, and I fuck up every day. But I mean, I think that's what I do really well as a mom is like everything I do is like I'm just really trying to set my daughter up for being the type of human who knows like she's all right to be whatever version of all right she is. Like, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be okay. It's okay to not do perfectly. It's okay to say sorry. It's okay to ask questions. And then the rest of it, I just kind of wing it and read like lots of books.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good.
I feel like that is, I don't know. I feel like that's important for every parent to know because I think that guilt really follows a parent around so much. A lot of times I find myself parenting through the shit that I went through, right? Like, and I don't even recognize that, like, I'm like, I'm upset at my daughter for something that, I fucked up when I was a kid. You know what I mean? And so it takes so much reflection and you don't catch yourself doing it at times, but you really have to have that compassion that you just talked about for your humanness, right? You're going to fuck up. You're going to send your kid to therapy, like no matter what, right? And that's okay. Like you can still do your best and continue to wake up the next day.
But that's not a fail. I want to say though, just like I feel like therapy is good for. I mean, I realize that our goal is not to go to therapy, but I think it's helpful. It helps us see something that we hadn't seen before. Yeah, it gives us like a different perspective on things. So I think that I don't see that as a bad thing. Like hopefully my daughter does go to therapy at some point in time, just because it's like, hey. Yeah. Well, that's I want to work on myself, self-help.
That's what I mean. Because I think like parents, we just take on a lot of guilt. And I think whenever I work with parents, I agree
with you for sure.
Parents are so hard on themselves sometimes, and it's a tough balance with trying to like correct how to parent or like to help coach someone how to parent, while at the same time giving them the tools to like be self-compassionate, because that's part of being a good parent is practicing that. Yeah. Your kids learn how to be compassionate towards themselves based on how you can be that with yourself.
Yes. 100%. Nothing has made me kinder to myself in front of my child than having my child. Yeah. Like there's not a negative body comment and never a statement about like my outward appearance. Like if I speak about myself, and it's not because it's not a hoity-toity thing. It's just like I speak kindly about myself to my daughter. Like I tell my daughter often like what I deserve and like what I want and need. And I tell her, like, she's only 4.5 and she knows how to set physical boundaries and walk away and say she actually knows how to say stop. Yeah. That's making me uncomfortable. I'm going to walk away now. Yeah. And like how to repair is like the craziest thing. And like I just try to empower her. And then on the days where, like and I listen, right? And like I listen to the things that she says and I key in on the things. And And it's so wild, right? It's like I live in a hybrid world where it's like sometimes I'm able to pull off cutting out of work a little bit early because I started early, and then I can go grab her from daycare early, but then I'm on my emails. And then I've noticed her having the ability to say, I'm feeling alone. And then I get to say, oh, like when mommy stares at her phone and you're not getting attention, it feels like you're alone now.
Yeah.
Even though I'm right here, I can imagine that it feels like that. Right. And that's all I can do. And then it's wild, like how attuned she is. She's the coolest. And then I also I try my very best every night to like tell her like I chose her. I tell her all the time.
What do you mean? Can you just kind of explain the process?
So I tell her the first time I loved her. I tell her like I loved you since you were the size of a sesame seed, and then I show her the size of a sesame seed, and I tell her, you know, before I could pick her name, that I called her Peaches because I figured out she was the size of a peach, and I just try my best to tell her all the time how chosen she was, and how much I love her, and like how and I don't know if I read this somewhere, but like, I mean, this all goes back to belonging, like in that, and this is how this all ties back to the brain and neurofeedback. It's like, I learned all of these little things about parenting by understanding the brain better and helping her, because I always wanted her to know where she was in physical space, and it's with me. I always wanted her to know where she belonged, and that was with our pack. And I always wanted her to know that she mattered in a bigger picture, because I did choose her and I wanted her. And then I tell her like super cute things like, hey, there's like 8 billion people on the planet and there's literally only one you. Or I'll be like, hey Alexa, how many people have been on the planet? And all of the and I'm like, and there's one you. How bonkers is that? Just you.
So the work you've done, the people you've helped, their experiences helped you just be mindful of, this is what's important to me, to build my daughter up this way, to let her know she's loved, chosen, seen. That's amazing. Yeah.
And still, like, I mean, even with all of that, I fuck up every day.
Well, that's what we do as people.
What we do.
Yeah, it's okay though. So we recover though.
We do the plan B.
The plan B.
I love that. Crushing the plan B.
Yeah, that's good. That's
my gosh.
So, do you got a plan B?
For the podcast?
No.
Just for all of
Just for life, dude.
Just for all of life.
Yeah, I never called it that, but I think not loving myself, like reassuring myself and like being kind to myself has been a struggle, you know, throughout my life. And I feel like I started to learn that I needed to do that when I graduated from my graduate program, like 2017. And I started to really get to know how to do that probably like 3 years ago, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I'm very young in this journey, and it's so much easier to be there for my clients and for my friends and for people, and like I can fucking help people really fucking great, you know. But I feel like just now peaking in this place of like learning how to be there for myself, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful, right? But yeah, so that's what I call it. I'm like, how can I be kind to myself today? You know, how can I like really weigh and pay attention to and give credit to my intention, to what I intended today, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's new, and I don't always catch it all the time, you know? My therapist told me this, like, you're real hard on yourself. It's like, but I kind of don't want to change that too much, because I feel like it's your motor. Like, it's what drives you, it's what pushes you to like move. But I wish we could tweak it to where like when it becomes too much, where it leaves you stuck, it leaves you lost, it leaves you depressed, like where you can recognize and just like, come on, let's reel it back in, because now we're just making ruts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. So what you said, something so something about your intention. It was not just that you said the word intention. It was what you said right before it.
Like you have to give credit. Like
give credit to the intention. And then you spoke to being stuck. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not a therapist, but it's like I do think that those two things seem to be like kind of the bookends to like a productive, helpful day. Right? It's like I think you're onto something with that is really big, because on the hard days, what ends up, and this is the beauty of therapy, right? Like this is, I mean, in self-development and being around people that are into that, is if you're not careful and you end up stuck, then you stifle your gifts that you could give to somebody else. And doesn't that in and of itself give credit to the intention to help?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I can feel into that sense of being stuck, right? And being stuck in that. And you do this, like you do the awkward.
Yeah.
You come and you talk about brainy, nerdy shit, or like you talk about like only learning to love yourself after being in a program where technically, you know, I can see why you'd be like, I'm just now starting therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like so weird. It felt like such a fraud, you know? Like, damn, like,
but
I should have been doing this a long time ago. But yeah, like we all have our journey in it. And I'm really happy that I did it when I did it, because I think I was in a healthy enough place to go in there with thinking I was good. You know, I'm good. You know, I'm just going to finish these hours that I got to do. And then I'm like, wait, what? I'm so messed up.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it is wild.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we want to talk to Katie about? I mean, I could talk to Katie for hours here.
I had a question for you, but I've lost it right now.
You lost the question?
I've lost the question.
Do you still have the Descendants hoodie?
I do.
Okay.
Dude, I was actually just thinking, they're getting to kind of burn out. You know, I was thinking about, not the Descendants, to be clear.
It's okay.
So you guys,
my sweaters, my zipper. What I meant by is like my zipper's busted. There's bleach on it, like the rings on the. But the last time I saw you was actually the day before that show.
Yeah.
And I went home that night. I felt like crap, right? And I had some drinks. Okay. And I was like, I'm never going to get pregnant. I'm never going to be pregnant. And so like I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. And I was like so in a mental headspace that I read it and it said positive. I was like, oh, and I threw it away. And my sister, so the next day I woke up and I was like, God, why do I feel like such shit? And I almost didn't go to the Descendants.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, I was not hungover. I was just pregnant.
You were just pregnant.
I was just pregnant.
That's wild. That is wild. Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah.
That is a great. I didn't know that. That's very cool.
Look at you. You got like the fairy dust.
Yeah.
He had nothing to do with that.
So maybe we should install the hoodie. Let's give credit to the Descendants.
Yeah.
So.
Is the Descendant energy.
Yeah.
Pick some Descendants.
No wonder my wife got pregnant when we were talking, dude.
Okay,
I'm like, shit.
She does not have a Descendants
no,
hoodie.
She doesn't.
She should
dude.
get one.
No,
Also,
seen a commonality here.
But yeah,
Cool, yeah.
I mean, thank you
Let's
so much
wrap
for
this
coming
up.
on the
You're
show.
welcome,
Is there
guys.
anything at this point in time that anything you want to promote or plug? Like, you got anything? You don't have to have anything.
I mean, I have so many things that I feel like I plugged them.
You did it.
You have a social media account.
Oh, yeah.
Right? With 17 followers. So we want to add more to that. Right? So
I would like to thank my 12 loyal followers, mom and dad, and the rest.
What's up with the running?
Oh, dude.
This has been your jam for not a long time, right?
Yeah, my ankles really hurt. My knees really, I'm kind of swollen. Yeah, I like to run. In
All right.
fact, no, that's my plug, you guys.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so
we knew it.
I am actually looking to raise funds for a nonprofit in addition to the original 3 lines of, services that we offer.
Yeah.
One of the wellness, the shift wellness, the retreat option, that's not covered by insurance because we're not doing treatment there. That's not the intention. It's not an insurance thing. But, lots of folks come to those retreats like really in need of help, and they're not super duper duper cheap.
Yeah.
And also
get in there.
Yeah, get in there. So, sorry, like this.
It's all good.
Like
Yeah,
this.
you got it.
Anyway, so my team is running another Ragnar. So it's another relay race. We just finished one from San Diego to Huntington Beach. It was like over 200 miles, like the way that we break it up. And I ran 22 miles. It's fine. My knees will never forgive me. It's okay.
You can run 22 miles?
No, absolutely not. But I tried.
Yeah.
I tried.
Okay.
Anywho, so we are actually going to for the First Responder Health Foundation, and I will send you guys the links. We're actually raising awareness and we're raising funds. And if we raise enough funds, we'll will actually go run that whole thing again in Tahoe.
Dang.
Wow.
When is that?
It's going to be in August.
Okay.
So
Cool.
I'm trying to figure out.
So we got to release this before.
Yeah, no, it
August.
will be out by August.
Oh
for sure.
boy. Yeah.
No, it won't be.
Okay.
We'll make it happen.
All right, cool. So we're trying to raise funds for that nonprofit to help, because by the time a responder lands in our care or their family member, like there's a lot of additional expenses. Most of the time people are not sitting on a bank of time and money.
How much is the retreat?
About $1,000 a night.
Oh, dang. And how many nights?
Some of them are 3. Some of them are 2 nights. Some of them are 3 nights.
Okay.
And so we're just kind of trying to help bridge the gap.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
also like a bunch of other things that people need when they come to our care. Like sometimes, they just need the little extras or, just getting
out.
education and awareness out there for trainings.
So if you raise X amount of funds, you have to run another 22 miles? Is
I'm
that
not
what you're
going to
telling
run.
me?
Yes, I will run some.
You hear that? So let's make Katie run again.
I can't. My ankle
because-
and my knees won't let me. But yes.
Because she makes inspiring videos. Usually when you were like recording yourself running, I was like, damn, dude, I got to get out there. I was like, I got to go
You
run.
want to?
No, not get out there.
Good for her, like mad respect. But I'm like, I ain't doing the running shit no more. Nope.
I think I did run that day, actually.
See, it's not a no. It's not a no. You're surrounded by two. It's a yes sandwich. It's practically a yes.
Yeah, you should
The
go.
old yes sandwich.
The old yes sandwich.
You should totally do it.
Yeah. I mean, get out there and run. I love to run.
Do it, Jesse.
I'm gonna learn from your daughter and just set a solid boundary with that. Like,
Stop.
yeah,
You're making me uncomfortable.
that's right. I love that. That's perfect.
I
So.
love it. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on the
welcome.
Yeah,
show.
awesome, dude.
If you guys have any questions for Katie, we'll be taking those. Any questions about neurofeedback? Thank you. I feel like I know more about neurofeedback than I've ever known in my life. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll throw up your social media handle on the
Okay.
description.
Okay.
But that's the show, baby.
That's right. Check in on your friends.
There it
Yeah.
is. Yo, check it.
Check.
1
check,
2 1 2 check check check.
Oh yeah, we're good.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want me to bring it up?
Sure, go ahead, buddy.
Okay. Just that you like to read.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Do you remember which one?
Yeah. Well, was it the quiet quitting one or was it the diaper one?
It was the
was probably
both. It was both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Well, I want to bring up that you like our shit a little bit,
I
right?
do.
So,
evidence that
With the heart.
We're
I
okay.
did
The heart.
Double tap.
I did a.
and we got like a DM. We got like a fuck yes or something like that. It was like a very passionate, like I
like,
felt.
oh, hey, remember Katie?
I
Yeah.
felt
She just said a
seen
fuck
in that
yeah,
moment.
No, we did a podcast on quiet quitting. I read an article about how people are doing that in their jobs, and I brought up during the podcast. I came up with this, right? I
Yeah,
came
you
up with
did.
this.
This
You're very
all
proud of me.
you, baby.
A lot of claim on praise on me, but like we talked about quiet quitting in relationships, and you gave us one of those like thumbs up there.
Yeah.
Why did that speak to you, or is it something you've heard about or possibly experienced? Like, what was it about that real or that spoke to you?
Right. Can you explain what quiet quitting is? Refresher for me and also for the audience, but also for me.
The initial thing with quiet quitting was that people were going to their jobs and not really putting in their all when it came to work. So that was the initial idea that came out.
I'm gonna do the minimum. I'm gonna show up.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
yeah.
go above and beyond.
So then, like, because
As a protest.
yes,
Yeah.
we're a mental health podcast, addiction podcast, recovery podcast, and we talk about relationships and all those things. And I'd brought up the idea, like, I think if we had ever talked about quitting in a relationship, kind of just being present but not really putting a full effort in. So that
Yeah.
would be like quiet quitting in a relationship.
Yeah. So I think the reason, and I think the other thing that I really liked was the diaper one.
Yeah.
The dad claps. And don't get me wrong, you guys absolutely
Right.
deserve that. I think because I've experienced.
Are you damn right? We just.
It's hard changing a diaper.
You have no idea how
Ladies,
we
you
have
know how
it.
to do that?
Just kidding, ladies.
Wow,
We're
I've got a
just
southern
kidding.
accent. That was wild. Okay.
Just kidding.
No, I think because I've experienced that in life, the quiet quitting.
Yeah.
I've experienced that in really big ways. I've experienced it managing people at work, and I've experienced it in my own interpersonal or like my own, intimate partnerships and relationships. And it puts a massive amount of pressure on the person on the outside to try and figure out what the hell is going on and what to do about it. And I think there was something about the way that you presented it that I think just hit that on the head. And I think that it's, it really touched on something that I was and am going through in my personal life and realizations that I'm having. About when people quit things.
I saw this reel, or I saw something on the internet, and we don't need to talk about this if you don't want to, but it was something about referencing like single moms, right? But the idea that like there wasn't supposed to be a concept of single moms because it's so hard to parent by yourself. You're not a single mom. You're a single working mom. How did you kind of say it? Or you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
So I think the concept I was talking about was single married motherdom.
That's what. Okay.
That is not a real phrase. I just made that up. Single married motherdom. This is yours right here. You roll with it. So. Yeah, I think.
Explain that a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I think, and I can only speak for myself, but I think that and I think I've seen enough reference to this, but that there's like a sense that there are women who are married and they are living more like single moms than a single mom. And it's something that I have unfortunately experienced where I was a single mom and no one really noticed it. Because I had all of the trappings of, and the misses and the ring and the things, and I was not. I was doing it alone, right? Like, and no, women are not like this is a new construct. This whole women doing it just with their partner, even. Like that's not how it worked. And it's super interesting too. We live in a society that has essentially, and I'm completely snaking this from a talk that my boss does. It's a really good talk though. But we live in a society that has essentially demonized in a lot of ways women speaking with other women, when in actuality, like our survival as a species depended on women talking. Because, right, it's like if the hierarchical structure is for, the chief, right, to get the information, and then from the top down come the decisions. Well, women, we speak and we move laterally, right, in a community, because imagine if you're in a society where, from an evolutionary survival standpoint, every person in the tribe has a job, right? Like she's the best at finding the non-poisonous berries. Like she's the best one with the ADD to do all of the things. She notices all of the things, but she just had a really rough delivery and she's not doing so great.
Do we want to transition? Do you want to talk about the diaper thing then, or just no? Because
for sure.
I got you back, dude. Let me just jump right into
the diapers. Let's do it.
The diaper thing. But just like that spoke to you so much.
Yeah.
Can you describe the reel?
You said it. What did you say on the reel?
You asked the question.
Your wife, like, basically, you were at a Mexican restaurant, right?
Yeah. I feel so intimidated by you right now.
Why
are you yelling at me?
I guessed it was a Mexican restaurant.
My lord.
That's
yeah.
Probably,
Oh yeah. Did you?
It was messed up, right?
This guy. You were in Mexico.
You were at Applebee's, right? So you went to Applebee's. You went to go change your daughters.
It was at Board and Brew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where? Local?
Ladera Ranch, Board and Brew.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Justin Herbert. So he went to go, right? He met Justin Herbert. Yeah, Justin Herbert? It doesn't matter. So he went to go change your daughters.
You got ADD too, bud?
No, bro. I'm just like...
Superpower.
Nothing against it. But like, you went to go change your daughter's diaper. You came out... mad applause.
Oh,
right?
dude,
like it was the Oscars. Like the award of the best person goes to the best parent in the relationship.
I got a standing ovation, and I was with a friend who, thou shalt not be named, but a friend who doesn't have kids, and like was sort of like, like you are like that. No one does that.
Nobody does that.
And
nobody does.
I looked at my wife, and she's just like.
I like your wife.
Yeah, she's awesome, and she keeps me on check. And I was like, that's. I kind of like a little bit of it felt like a little scene. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then like talking to my wife, she's like, they wouldn't do that for me. Like, what the hell? So I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, it's kind of fucked up. That
Katie, that happens to you all the time, though, right? When you walk out, you get the mad. No, it doesn't work
Absolutely
that way.
No
What
one
is the deal with that?
Oh my gosh, a mom being great.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what's the reason why I had such a response to that for you guys is because I was like, oh my gosh, yay, you guys have an awareness of that, and that in that moment, and I actually think I shared that, maybe I even shared it, and I had some of like my more aware dad friends like reach out and be like, dude, I had that exact same thing happen to me,
That's
but
cool.
they can chuckle at themselves and say like, I think it's absolutely ridiculous because like my wife Jenny, like she does all of this stuff all day long, and like literally I go and change my kid's diaper and people are like, you're the best. Which is not to say that you're not, it's just to say like, where is that? And like my sister mentioned like, it takes so what did she say? And she's like, we're both very loving people, but it takes so little for a woman to be called a bad mom, and so much it takes so little for a woman to be called a bad mom, and so little for a dad to be called a good dad.
The bar's so low.
The bar's different for sure. And I think that's kind of, I think my response was just like, okay, guys of my age and like my generation are really seeing it and getting it. And it's not at all to discredit or devalue. What you're doing is simply to say that there is a different standard there, because there is a level of expectation.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's obvious. It's just a level of expectation. Now, have I fed into that? Yeah. Because to be honest with you, there have been so many times personally where it's like, I'm the first one to jump to it anyway.
Yeah. It would happen too, by the way, if my wife was seen changing the tire, right, while I was inside the car, like taking care of the kids.
Dude, that's honestly true. I'd be like, look at that badass.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yes. See? How guilty am I of the same double standard? Yeah. But there is an invisible labor, I think, that you know, and I think it's picked up a lot of momentum, especially on social media, that, you know, we understand now how much it takes to actually be, you know, a primary parent from the home, you know, in the way that people work jobs, otherwise known as a stay-at-home parent.
Yeah. No.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Dude.
Okay. Well,
First
there we are.
time in history, turning off the podcast and turning it back on. Like that was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. Look at.
That was like,
Yeah.
we gotta talk about this,
Okay.
but not talk about this.
Yeah. So
Are you
we'll just
done?
leave
Are we
that
done,
out.
Jess?
Yeah, we're done.
Oh, okay. My bad.
I put it by my crotch.
All right.
It's over. You wanna keep- No, we already have
Say goodbye.
Wait, what? Sorry, I put the microphone in my crotch. Thank you, everybody. Check in on your friends.
Got my name, tag it home. Today I'm Jack. Greet you like I give a fuck. Are you surprised by that?